Okay, I'm back again today with another audio adventure. You may have seen other reviews on YouTube of a product from Moondrop called the Space Travel 2. And I wasn't originally interested in this product. But then I saw a couple of videos that talked about some of the interesting features around the EQ options or the DSP options. And then they said that the thing cost $30. And now, okay, that's a value proposition that I need to pursue, right? Because as you know, I've done a couple of audio reviews on this channel of products that are relatively inexpensive. I don't think I've reviewed anything that's been more than $120. Most of them have been, even under $100. One of the things that I reviewed not too long ago was these CMF Buds. I've got them in a purple case. Don't ask. It's a review thing. And these were pretty good. These were about $50-$60, and I thought that they were really good for the price. Put them up against the Soundcore, Soundpedes, everything is sound. The Soundcore P40i, and I thought that these were pretty good comparison. Well, okay, if you've got $40 to $50 to $60 earbuds, how do the $30 ones compare? So today, I got these little Moondrop Space Travel 2s. I just want to say off the bat, I just want a quick rant before we get really deep into this. I hate this case. I hate this case so much. I don't even know who designed this and what they were thinking, but it's open on top. So you pull them, they're awkward to get out. There's probably a trick that I haven't learned, but they come out. They slide in. You have to get them just right into this little slot, and then they go in, and I hate it. I hate this case so much. It's cute. They come in white and black, by the way. I got the white because they were available faster than the black, because all of you people out there have been buying up the black ones. Thank you very much. So yes, $30. What do these have to offer, though? And how do they compete against something like the CMF Buds 2 that came out not too long ago? Let's see. Let's talk about it. Okay, so here we are with the Moondrop Space Travel 2. Again, as I mentioned in the opening, they come in this unusual case that is open on the top. And they do come in white and black, and I have white here. It's got these orange accents with the orange plastic here that they kind of are presented in. It's got the openings on the side. This is the stem of the earbud. It's solid on the back. There's no opening on the back. You just have some branding that says Moondrop. And there's the usual Bluetooth information. I do want to highlight, I don't know if this is readable and if my camera will focus, but that says Bluetooth 6.0. I have wanted for a while to try to get a Bluetooth 6.0 phone and a Bluetooth 6.0 audio product and see if there's really any advantages. I have not yet bought a Bluetooth 6.0 phone. I assume that the new Pixels that just debuted this week probably have Bluetooth 6.0, and I recently bought a Pixel 9 Pro XL because the specs on the 10 didn't look like it would be important enough to justify paying all of that money for a 10 when I could get a used 9. I have not considered whether or not I'm going to change my opinion on that. Nevertheless, I do not have a Bluetooth 6.0 phone at this point, but these are Bluetooth 6.0, so at least I'm ready whenever something comes out that we'll be able to take advantage of them. I can tell you that in terms of using this with the audio products I did test it with, the connection range is about the same. It's about average, maybe slightly above average. I would lose it a little bit when I would go into my basement, which is normal. My house is old and the walls are plaster, and so you walk through one room and many audio products just give up the ghost right then and there. This one will at least make it to the basement and usually reconnect when I got closer to underneath where the audio device was in the main floor. I could go all the way outside to my mailbox with these, with my front door closed, and get my mail, and they worked fine. So above average, but again, not as flawless as some other items I've reviewed on this channel. Nevertheless, as I mentioned before, it is kind of tricky getting these out of here. I usually try to pull from the stem. I have fingernails, so that makes it a little bit easier, but I try to pull from the stem, the top of the stem here. So that is what they look like. If I compare them in terms of size and shape with the CMF Buds that I mentioned, the CMF Buds are a little bit more stylish looking. They aren't just as boxy. Let me take this back out again. Why did I even put it back in there? So you've got a stem that's longer on the Moondrop, on the Space Travel 2s. And then you can see the stems on the CMF Buds are curvier and more aesthetically pleasing. I think the Nothing group is all into aesthetics. The bodies of the buds are very close in size. The location of the microphones and the little ports are very similar. The shape of the openings, very similar. This one has the charging contacts on the back side instead of on the bottom. But yeah, they look very different, and not just because one is white and one is blue, but they are actually pretty similar. When you get down to these bodies, the bodies of most of these buds are very similar. Usually the differences are just on the stems. And you can see that the Moondrops are longer, which you would think would mean better mic performance. More on that later. So that is what they look like. That is what the case looks like. They're $30, so you're not getting a whole lot of frills. There's no wireless charging here. You don't get wireless charging with the CMF Buds either at double the price. So that, I think that's perfectly reasonable and fair. You do get some stuff in the box that it comes in. I've taken everything out. You've got this plastic cover and the buds were in here, and this little box was down here. So no frills kind of box, but that's fine. You're just probably gonna throw it away, right? Doesn't need to be super special. Inside that box that comes in this box, you get the aforementioned tips and a little charging cable. If I could open this box, I can open the side. So you get the tips. You see I haven't even opened them. You get 3 other sizes of tips. Small, medium, large, I assume. Maybe extra small, medium, large. I don't know what the ones are that come on them, but they fit me fine, so I left them there. And you've got your usual A to C cable. Everything's black. See, if I had gotten the black buds, all of this would look very, very well put together. Because I got white, everything just kind of looks awkward. So you get this little box. So again, I think the sound for these for $30 is actually really pretty good. Honestly, I'm going to say I was surprised, because if everyone else tells you this is really good for $30, and you're going to expect it to be really good for $30, right? And it really is. So I will show the app later, but in the app you have kind of a couple options for tuning the sound. The normal, what they call EQ presets, you've got a reference, which you would expect to be pretty flat. And then you've got a bass plus and a bass minus. I did most of my listening in the bass plus, but I also did some listening a couple of days later with some of the special DSP options that are in there. This is really what makes this particular product interesting, is that instead of just having EQs, or even something like what you may have seen with Nothing in their headphone, where people can create EQ presets and you can install them with a QR code. This one doesn't use QR codes, but people can create their own EQ preset or DSP presets, and they can upload them to Moondrop, and then Moondrop can make them available for you to download. And Moondrop itself offers a few based off of their other products. So if you want your earphones to sound like I mentioned, the Blessing or the Aria, you can make them sound like that, theoretically, at least from the curve, right? The EQ curve. And they show you the EQ curve, so when you apply them, you can go in and see how it's customized it. And so you have options there. You can create your own. You do need an account to create your own, but you don't need an account to download and install ones that are already out there. And I played around with it a little bit. I mainly tried the ones that Moondrop provided. And out of those that I tried, I liked the Harman Target the best. But I didn't find it super dramatically different than the reference bass plus EQ that I was using for most of my listening. I will say that you really need to be paying attention, and you probably need to be listening to good quality of files in order to really hear the difference of some of the DSP options that are available for download. Because some of them are very similar. If you listen really closely, some of them is like, okay, I hear more mids on this one. The mids are much more present, or the bass is more present here, or there's a little bit more sparkle in the high end. I do think that is really neat and really interesting to play around. I haven't seen anything else like that with any other product that I personally own or have tried. I like the idea of being able to create presets that will give you a sound that's comparable to some other product. Now, nothing's ever going to sound completely like another product because, drivers matter, size of drivers matter, the construction of the device matters. But in terms of an EQ curve, you can mimic the EQ curve of other products. And I think that is really, really nifty. And for $30 to be able to get in on something like that, I do think that is actually really compelling. And I do think it is a reason to buy this product if that interests you. If you're the kind of person who just buys earbuds because you want to listen to music for the background, maybe during your day at work or whatever, or you want to wear them while you're working out, you're in the gym or you're in your home gym, or you want to wear them out on a walk or on a run, none of that matters. I've said this before in other videos. If you're just using them as casual background, music for your day, none of that matters. Pop them in your ears out of the box, maybe add bass, take away bass if you're not a bass head, and be happy and be done with it. But if you are kind of an audio nerd and you've thought, well, I always wondered what the EQ curve of, Crinical's latest earbuds would sound like, well, you can go download it. Somebody created, a couple of different presets out there that are designed to sound like some of his products. If you wanted to know, what some of the other Moondrop products, what their EQ curves were like, you can go mess with those. People have created a lot of them. There are a lot of them out there, so you can go play with them. But again, only if you're going to listen critically, take the time to really listen to what the differences are, does any of that stuff matter. And this is where this product is really interesting, right? Because of the $30 price, these are kind of almost an impulse buy, a backup pair. It's not necessarily the price you'd be expecting to pay for your primary pair of earbuds for your critical listening. Wireless obviously isn't the best for critical listening anyway. If you're really doing serious critical listening, you're a musician and you're really studying music for musical purposes, you already know wireless probably really isn't what you should be doing anyway, but it is convenient. Can't deny that. So if you're the kind of person who just want to kind of play around and see, what difference does EQ, these people are always talking about EQ. What are these people talking about? With a product like this, you really can kind of go in and see, what are people talking about? What does that really mean? And I think that is really nifty and really neat. And I recommend it for anyone who's actually interested in that. However, again, at this $30 price, they sound good enough out of the box that if you really just do want a simple, inexpensive pair, then great. I can't say anything negative about them from a sound perspective for what they are. You can tune them and customize them quite a bit. They're reasonably comfortable. There are aftermarket cases and case toppers and case covers out there, so if you're worried about it being open on top, you can find something out there that will help you keep them in the case. So if you want to travel with them and you're worried about that, there are options out there for that. Now, that said, so I've covered that I think these are a great buy at $30, whether you're just a casual listener or whether you're someone who really wants to get into audio nerdetry. However, I did mention the CMF Buds too. And some of you are probably like, okay, JP, how do they compare to those? Are these twice as good as these, being as they're twice the price? That's hard. So they are different. Even with being able to customize and EQ these and make them sound different and play around with sound, there's still a basic sound, I think, underlying all of that. and a basic approach to sound that is different between these two companies. If you, again, now if you're an out of the box kind of person and you're not interested in these for tinkering, there's only so much tinkering you can do with the CMF, with the Nothing app, with the CMF Buds. If you've seen the app for the Nothing headphone, it is the same app, but you don't get all the same features with these cheaper buds. Just keep that in mind. You get very basic preset options here, and you can kind of slide around on that weird little circle slider and customize things, to a certain extent. But out of the box, these are much, much more bassy than these. You can bring up the bass on these, but out of the box, these are definitely bassier and boomier. So what does that mean? So you probably have heard audiophile or audio reviewers talk about boomy bass, and sometimes they mean it positively and sometimes they mean it negatively. So if you get, a really nerdy audio person and they say boomy bass, they're not giving it a compliment. Boomy tends to mean less controlled, right? So you get this kind of cloudy effect, so to speak, on the bass, where you hear someone say tight bass, that means the bass is very controlled and it feels like it's right in where it needs to be and it's not spreading out over everything else, right? If something is boomy, then there tends to be a kind of a blooming effect over the rest of the spectrum. Maybe the bass overrides the mids. With a tight bass, usually the bass stays right there where it needs to be and it's not bleeding into the other sections of the sound spectrum. The CMF Buds are boomier and less controlled in the bass than the Moondrop, with the Dirac Optio setting on the CMF and the out-of-box reference or bass plus, even with bass plus on the Moondrop. These are bassier, so I think, you probably will hear this from others too. If you're buying inexpensive earbuds for workouts, probably go with these, because even though the bass is less controlled, it's going to pump you up and help you run, because you're going to get that bass, you're going to get that bass drum, you're going to get that bass guitar or whatever it is that's pumping in a lot of fitness music especially. I would go with these if you're buying for workouts, based on sound. Now, based off of, quality and construction and IP rating, I know. Neither one of them is like super good at that. But I think just from, like, if you're working out in the gym, you're working out in the house and you're not worried about getting them wet, I would go with the CMF Buds because that bass will probably get you moving. And they're smaller and probably, a little bit easier to deal with in your ears. You've just got a lot more stem over here to worry about with the balance and keeping them in your ears. Neither one of these fell out for me. I'll just say that, but everybody's ears are different. So boomier bass here, but you get a lot more of it without even having to do anything, right? Just with the presets that are the preferred preset that it comes with out of the box, you get more bass right there. So it does kind of push back the mids. It does kind of push into so if you're listening to bass, it does kind of push into other instruments more so. So if you're listening to a song with, you're listening for cymbals, or you're listening for horns or high notes on the piano, or even medium notes on the piano, the bass here is going to push into that more. But again, depending on what you like to listen to, if you're buying these to work out or you're really into, EDM or hip hop or even some R&B, anything that's bass heavy, you're probably going to enjoy this a little bit more. If you're listening to jazz or maybe even classical or rock and some pop, anything that's a little bit less dependent on bass, you'll probably appreciate the Moondrops a little more, even knowing that there's opportunities to go in and mess with the different levels in the EQ. I just, out of the box, because I don't think the average person is going to want to do a lot of fooling around with detailed EQ changes. I just think that out of the box, this is an easier buy for that kind of music. Now, the detail and the separation, I think they're actually pretty comparable, but because you have more recessed mids and the highs are pushed back a little bit more. You notice the detail more here. So again, depending on what you're looking for and how much you want to tinker, I think for a balanced sound out of the box without tinkering, the Moondrop I would go with. And for a bassier, much more fun, punchy kind of sound, the CMF. Now, I do want to say this because everyone raved so much about how good these are for $30, and I agree. I do think that they are great for $30. And if it were me and I had to pick between these, knowing that I do tend to listen to a lot of music with bass, I'd probably be torn here about which one I'd go with for my daily driver. I do think that these are very capable, but I do think that these are more fun. I like bass. That's just a personal thing, though. If that's not a thing for you, probably these. But I did wonder how far could I push this in a comparison. So I did pull out my beloved Soundpeats Capsule 3 Pro Plus Ultra Max, whatever these things are called. I pulled these out because I really like these. Of most of the ones that I reviewed lately, I keep reaching for these. I did a comparison of these against the Creative Arvana Ace Mimi, and I had loved the Arvana Ace Mimi, and I came away really impressed with how well the Capsule kind of pushed me back on those. I think those two kind of go blow for blow. This is also pretty bassy for what it is, but it is not as bassy as the CMF. I compared these. Now, these are not as good, but that's because the drivers here just reveal more. They're just a higher quality driver. The XMEMS drivers that are in here, along with the solid dynamic driver that's in here for the bass, you just have more pushing air in here to give you just a little bit more sound, and a little bit more presence, and a little bit more detail than you do. But you would expect that because these cost, I think, more than double the price. I want to say these were $70 or $80, and these are $30. And I would have been really hurt. Honestly, if these sounded better than these, I would have been tremendously hurt. But no, these are actually much better. So you can push this comparison, as far as you want. And I think you reach a limitation with what you have here in this package. That said, I had to listen. I had to really think about it, pay attention. What am I hearing? What am I listening for? What am I looking for? Because again, if you're just backgrounding music, it's just there for sound. None of this matters. It does not matter. But I do think that these have really nice detail and a nice little delicacy in the top end that you really don't get out of the box of the CMFs. So that's kind of where I stand with the comparison here of the kind of two cheapo headphones, earbuds that I have in my collection. I think that the Moondrops are worth your attention. And if you're in the market for a new pair of buds, or you just want to play around with audio settings and see how far you can go with these, I think they could be a lot of fun. But even if you don't want to, I still think they're great. That's what I got about the Moondrop Space Travel 2. Go buy them. Get them in black, though, because the white, the lid's going to get dirty. Look at that. You're going to lose them. Probably keep them in something a little bit more secure. Moondrop Space Travel 2. Thanks for watching. This is an audio recording using the Moondrop Space Travel 2 wireless Bluetooth 6.0 earbuds. We are testing to see how the microphone performs. This one doesn't advertise any special features with noise canceling from your environment, but we're going to try it out anyway. So I've got a small air purifier here. It's not turned on. I'm going to turn it on to the low setting right now. It's on low, and I'm going to keep talking. I've got the air purifier right here in my face. I'm going to turn it up to a next level. I've got it up to medium now. Can you still hear me? Can you hear me over the air purifier? I'm going to turn it up all the way. That's with the air purifier on its highest setting. Can you still hear my voice clearly? How does it sound? And now it's off. This has been the Moondrop Space Travel 2. This is an audio recording test with the CMF Buds 2, a sub-brand from Nothing. These are noise canceling Bluetooth earbuds that come in some interesting colors and offer a different look than your average Bluetooth earbud. They claim to have 6 microphones with AI So how does it sound? Again, this is the CMF Buds 2. Here in the Moondrop app, you can see I am connected to my Space Travel 2. I'm going to go here and click on them. I apologize, this particular app on my tablet looks weird. I don't know why, but everything that's here is just the way it's displaying on my tablet. I haven't done anything special, or this is just what happened. So you come in here, you can see obviously the battery percentage for each of the buds. You can see what ANC settings you're in. You can be in transparent, which is a little bit louder than real life, but it sounds, it's got a bit of a white noise sound, but it's reasonably clear and you can hear what's going on around you. Noise reduction is not stellar as you would expect at this price, but it's not terrible. It does get rid of, you know, hums of ACs or heaters, anything that's kind of like a low steady noise. It does a really good job blocking that out. It's not going to block out voices or, you know, high-pitched noises very well. You've got gain settings here. I keep it in the middle. If you've got a need for high gain because you want more volume, maybe you have, you know, you're hard of hearing, or you just want to blow your eardrums out, you've got high gain option. The tune-in EQ and online interactive DSP are really, I think, where the interesting things happen. You've got a user guide, you can update your firmware, but really this is probably the best place to start, because when you come into this, it's usually set up with reference. I did most of my testing with Bass Plus or Bass Minus, so these are the only options you get for just the very basic EQ. It's pretty decent out of the box. Like I said, I changed it to Bass Plus because I just wanted a little bit more bass, and I found that was perfectly good for most of my listening situations. But if you really want to play around and get nerdy, it's in this online interactive DSP section, and you can see that there's options in here for what you want to do with the different sound EQ profiles. So these here in this particular option, in this official section, these are all from Moondrop. You've got Harmon Target, Cadence, Aria 2, Land, Chew 2, Blessing 3, Kato, and you could download and install any of these. There's a featured section for when people have created them and they've uploaded them. And there's quite a few things in here. Sometimes people describe them, which is really helpful. Sometimes they just put them out here and you can just play with them if you want to. Sometimes they tell you what they're trying to simulate. And sometimes they just give them a name that they probably think is cute and helpful. But you can download any of these as well if you want to. You can create your own. I haven't created any of my own because, as you can see, you need to log in order to be able to do that. This dead little anime, that's a choice. Anyway, when you've downloaded something, you've got whatever you've downloaded here. These are the ones that I've downloaded and tried. These are all from Moondrop. I found out of these that I tried that I liked the Harmon Target response best, but you can come in here and play with whatever you want. And the neat thing is you can kind of go in and see what it's doing, and it'll show you what it's doing. It'll give you the curve. You can see what the settings are, and you can see this for each of them. If I select and apply a different one, then I can come in here and you can see that this is down a little bit lower and this is down a little bit lower, and you get a different curve. So you can see what these different levers are pulling on, so to speak. People have come in here and they've changed, you know, whatever values in order to get the sounds that they've got. So you can do quite a bit of tweaking. But even if you don't want to tweak, like I said, there's the official ones, and then there's the featured ones, and you can create your own. I think this is pretty nifty. I've never seen anything quite like this. You can download and play with them, and again, whenever you download and play and decide to play with is here, and you just click on this invisible apply button. That's really what it says in here, is apply. Again, I don't know why this app is not showing up well on my tablet. It is not tablet optimized. Moondrop, get on that. Anyway, those are the online interactive DSP sections. And the only other thing in here, you know, is you can update your firmware. That is really it. This is a very basic app outside of that. That is the Space Travel 2. Got what the version number is, and back to the product. And if you want to see more information on the other stuff they sell, you can come in here and see that. So that is it. That is the Moondrop app. What do you think?